So now I'm going to hand back to Lars. Now, the way we're going to do this is Lars is going to give his presentation on quality before the prayer. After the prayer, Janusz will then talk about Poland and the experiences of managing quality in the Polish census, and then we will go into the next exercise and have as soon as that finishes. So I'm now going to hand back to Lars, and Lars and I will swap seats.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Welcome back. It seemed you were having a great discussion, so I was also sorry that I have to take up the time here, but I will do it as quickly as possible, and I will try to take you through some thoughts about how you can bring quality into all of the aspects of the administrative census process. And of course, we already talked about what the census should do for you to give this small area estimations and so on in one coherent picture. So that can be used as reference for all kinds of statistics that you're doing elsewhere in your organizations. But then we have to think about when is it good quality, what is good quality. And there's one question which has been posed sometimes, that is, are traditional censuses the truth? I know that some of my colleagues used to think so, but of course it's not. And then on the other hand, we have the registers, which hold a lot of information which is being used by the administrations. So it ought to be true, but is it really true? It ought to be true in order to secure good administration. So in the first place, we could think about why do we want to use administrative sources? And one reason is efficiency. If we already have the data in the administrative registers, it is cheap and efficient to use it, to reuse it, and also people would expect, citizens and agencies would expect us to make best reuse of the data. Why collect something that you have already got? It could be a fast way, it could be a way to get timely data, and then again it could not. It depends on whether the administrative sources are actually quick and timely. One good thing is, of course, that it provides total population coverage, which is an advantage over the survey, the sample surveys, and it fits well with the let's say concept of census. It must have total population coverage in the census, and there will be no non-response, but of course there will be problems that are similar to non-response, because some people may be missing from the administrative registers. And then I think an important point is that the data may sometimes be quite outstanding. I can say for my own country that the population register has a very high degree of quality, which can be proved by a lot of mechanisms where we review the quality, but still, this is good enough. Is it good enough to constitute a census when you bring it all together? We have already talked about the 5 dimensions of quality, and I understand that these are the same dimensions that you use in your internal work. They are the classical aspects of quality. Sometimes you see them formulated in a little bit different way, but still it's the same, always the same. It must be the relevant data, it must be accurate, it must be timely, coherent, and accessible. But finally, when it comes to the top level of what is quality, it's really fitness for use, and this is also in the total quality management terminology. This is the one and only final measure of quality, that somebody likes what you're doing, they can use it, Um, and we have to consider all kinds of users who are using our product, who are using the census data. And this is a business process perspective on what we do. And we don't have a pointer.
No, sorry, I haven't organized
No.
the pointer.
Okay, but in one end here you can see, then maybe I can this be? No, yes. Here you can see the users are red. Everything is for the users. We here, this is our office, which is a black box at the moment, and we have access to some resources, staff, IT systems. We have the respondents and the registers who can deliver data to us. Then we have to do something about it. We have to act in the environment of political and legal context, and also the technology standards which are accessible in our part of the world, in our country. Then we have to use all of this to fulfill user needs, and we have to make users report back to us to say what they are, if they are satisfied, if something is wrong. And then here a little bit more detail, because as I showed in my first presentation, these are the business processes, these are the core processes producing the statistics. And many of you are involved in these processes and trying to define the needs and design the system, etc., through the whole chain of business processes described in the GSPPM. And in addition to this, we have the management who's trying to make sure that this goes in an orderly manner. They make sure that we take into account the user's feedback, make a plan for the census and allocate resources. And we have a lot of support processes also going on in the organization about quality management and metadata. I always keep stressing metadata because I think it's one of the things that it's easy to forget, but nevertheless it's so important for the whole functioning of your organization, and also for the users in the end, that they can understand what are the data that they're providing to me. Can I use them for my purpose? And then methods and IT. So all of this has to go together in order to end up satisfying user needs. And all the things in management, in support processes, everything has only got a meaning if it contributes to the value that the users get in the end of the process. When we come to register-based statistics and register-based censuses, no, I can't put it there. Anyway, one characteristic is that they are out of our control, largely speaking. They are decided by others. They are decided by the administrations who register what they need for their administration. So we cannot make sure that the concepts that they have are the right concepts that we need. How can we then evaluate the quality? It may be that they are registering something which is not really true. And then we have the old saying that you can have garbage in and then you would have garbage out. If the data you use as a basis for what you're doing are no good, the end result would also be no good. So the problem is, do we have a chance to improve the quality of these sources? Our own processes we have a better control of. We can decide ourselves what we want to do. Is it better? Okay. In this case, good. You think it's good? Okay. Let's try. We can do more when it comes to our own processes, because we can, after all, decide what we want to do, and we can repair if there are deficiencies as seen as sources for a census. If there are deficiencies in the sources, we can still do something to repair those deficiencies. But on the other hand, we should also recognize that when we try to repair the deficiencies, we might also create new errors, and there's quite a substantial risk for that. These are the, this is the whole of the GSPPM framework, and as you can see here, the idea is that here is explained how it relates to the ISO 9000 framework. So the idea is that first of all we will document products and processes, and then we will have guidelines for the production processes. We will evaluate user needs, and then we will have a quality organization. This is an attempt to show where the processes I'm talking about in the following, where they are in this GSPPM framework. And this is very much about the processes of identifying the user needs and find out which data are available in the sources of the administrative registers, and if it's necessary to supplement those sources with something that we have to collect ourselves. Then it's about the design of the collection phase and the design of the processing and analysis of the data that we get in-house. I think maybe you're not all very familiar with this picture. Some of us have seen it so many times that it's almost like, it's like home. But I hope that you will get a feeling for this model, because I think it's a very useful tool. Also, when you want to talk between your organizations, it's very useful to be able to understand completely, this is what I'm talking about. This process is what I'm talking about. So, and the quality work that you can do, the quality assurance, is related to the method of the census that you're doing. I've understood that most of you, or maybe all of you, think about or plan to have a fully register-based census in 2020. It may also be that it will have elements of field work that will have to be connected. One model would be that base registers could be used as to create the population of people, households, and also the populations of dwellings and buildings. And then you may need to go in the field and verify the data that are in the base registers, and supplement with some of the data which are not there and should be there, even if you take into account also specialized registers. You may use the existing register-based data when you go in the field, and you will use for certain these data. And the problems, quality problems of the sources could be, first of all, relevance. I talk a little bit about that. If the registers don't measure what the census is supposed to measure, then you have a relevance problem which you have to handle. And then it may happen that the population in the base register deviates a bit from what you want. There may be coverage problems. Timeliness is an issue. Updating may be too slow in the administrative sources, and this will give you a problem. And also, your own processing of the administrative sources may take more time than this would be ideal. Then there's one problem which I would like to focus on is inconsistent updating speeds in the administrative sources. Identifiers can be imprecise and they can be lacking in some cases. Data items can be badly measured for some reason. There could be errors. And one last problem could be that sources may change over time because if the legislation changes, so can the sources, and maybe they can disappear. And this is a terrible risk when we are relying on the administrative sources for censuses and also for all other kinds of statistics. We talked about this morning that, or earlier this morning, that we need to understand the sources as well as we can. We cannot understand everything. We are only humans, most of us. And so we must establish close cooperation with agencies. I'm happy to see that we have a number of the administrative agencies who are the sources of our future work on register-based censuses. It would be very useful to make sure, in order to understand, we should have cooperation committees with each of the agencies who deliver significant parts of the data that we are going to use. It would also be very useful to have memorandum of understanding with each and every one of the agencies. Of course, we already talked about, or Nancy already mentioned very much, that the legislation must also be in place so that it's legal for us to have the statistics, get access to the registers. And then we need to get the documentation about the administrative sources, if it exists, or to the extent that it exists. It may happen that not everything is documented, but and then we will have to look into whether this documentation seems to indicate that we can use the data for the purposes that we intend to do. And also we have to see if the populations are those which are needed. If there's something missing, some parts of the population are not well covered. And in this case, can it be repaired by combining data from different sources? Here are some examples. I will not go into them very much, except to say that it may be useful for us to consider if we have some data, for instance, on labor participation from some administrative register. We might consider if labor force survey or similar surveys can be used to evaluate and maybe calibrate the model we use to estimate the concept of the topics for the census. And in other cases, we may combine a lot of different sources just to calculate one single item in the census. The current economic activity of the person is one example. in many countries it's calculated from a lot of sources. And then we will have to prioritize the information coming from the different sources and have rules saying, if this source says so-and-so, it means this guy is economically active. Then we would have to decide which extracts we would need from each of the sources that we are using, how frequently it's going to be supplied, and also in what form it's going to be supplied with. What is the technical structure of the data that we can agree with the agency to have? Can we get it the way we wanted it? If not, can we process it once we have got it to make it conform with the needs of the census? Then there's a question: can we influence the content? Can we make the administrative agency adapt so that the needs for the census are met? And I would say normally we cannot, because the administrative sources are for administrations. But on the other hand, if we have an excellent, I mean really excellent business case that everybody can see, if we only got this small adjustment, it wouldn't harm so much for the agency, but it could mean saving a lot of resources for the country. In this case, if we are modest on only demand when it's absolutely necessary, then we may have success. Next dimension is coverage. Are there persons missing? Are there units missing in the materials we get from the registers? If there's something missing, can we use more sources, combine more sources in order to get a more complete picture? And for instance, can we create the population as a unit, a logical unit between several populations from several registers? This is something which is happening in many countries, for instance in the education business, where you have some people coming from one register, from one institution, and some from another, and then you can mix it all together to create the total population. Timeliness. Here we can have the problem that some agencies may be very slow in treating the data, can this be changed because of the requests from the statistical user side? Again, I would say normally not, but we may be able to provide some good ideas to the administrative agencies so that they could speed up the processes. And this is something that some of our experience from statistics can be used as inspiration for things that are going on in the administrative processes. And then if some of the data is very slow, we may need to supplement what we get from the registers, because we cannot wait until several years to get the information. So we may need to take in a sample survey to supplement the register data, but this involves very complicated estimation procedures, which I'm going to talk more about tomorrow, I think it is. Then there is one issue which I think is important, but I cannot talk about it at length here because we are getting close to the end of this presentation. But it is the issue that in administrative systems, the delays of the information of different persons may be very different. Some people may come in very early, other people or objects may come in very late. And for instance, when we refer to businesses, there may be some businesses who have an exemption, or they have a right to report later. For instance, it could be small businesses. They have in Denmark, for instance, they have a right in some of the systems that they don't have to report as frequently and as early as the larger business units. And then, of course, some of them may have bad habits. And also easy cases, something that's easy to understand when a person reports data to the administrative agency. If it's an easy case, they can just say, yes, it's okay, bang, it goes into the register. And if there's a bit difficult case, it may come much later. And of course, this is not good for the census, because the difficult cases will be different from the easy cases. So we can have a bias in the census taking if we don't take this into account. And in administrations, of course, they are mostly concerned with having as timely, as up-to-date data as possible. So they don't have to create a model for a specific date. We have to do that. And one piece of advice for this is that if possible, we should be able to record both the date of the event and the date of the registration of the event. Then we can try to handle it in the statistical system using very elaborate methods and mechanisms. Then regarding identifiers, we know that linking is absolutely essential to the whole process. It's absolutely essential that we can link data from the base registers to other registers, to specialized registers, and we can compare data from the different sources. Therefore, the identifiers are key. And if they don't work, if they're not perfect, we have a problem. And then if they're not working, can we do something else? We could maybe use some information which is almost identifying the people. I know of a case in my own country where we could use date of birth and date of death for deaths, and in this case we could actually get very close to identifying individuals and linking them together. And of course also we can have substitutes for real identifiers such as name and birthday and place of birth, and this might add up to something where we can find some of the people, maybe not all of the people, but some of the people. And then lastly, we might need to have a probabilistic element in the matching procedure, which is also sometimes called statistical matching, where we have the risk of making some false links and also some missing links. There will be errors, of course, in the administrative sources. It's inevitable. So editing must be performed by the statistical organization. And here, I think we all have this tradition of being very thorough with the editing and going through each case and having somebody look at each record, see, can this really be true? Can this really be true? And I think this is not really manageable when it comes to a census, and when it comes to a register-based census, it becomes quite out of hand. And so we must employ something like selective editing. I'm also going to show more in detail how it works later on. But we have to prioritize errors which are serious, and we can only spend time treating them manually if they are really serious errors. The rest of the errors we have to treat in an automatic way by use of imputation techniques. And it's important to try to correct to the micro level so that the microdata files that we end up with, they will reflect the whole population. This is good for the flexibility of the use of the statistical registers that we produce. So even if it's something that is found on the macro level, on the aggregate level, we find out that something needs to be corrected, we should correct it at the individual level so that the microdata in our registers will be will add up to a census. An important thing is that we need to pilot the data of the administrative registers. We cannot assume that we can just take it in and put it in and then we have the statistics. We have to take it in and test it for a long time. And typically I would say a year is very quickly gone when you have this exercise of testing the data. 2 years are also easily passed away. On the other hand, it's a very interesting exercise. So I think you have interesting times in front of you. And of course, you would have to think about, before you get the data for the pilot, what am I supposed to do when I get this data? How did I think I should estimate the census topics, the census concepts? But you must be prepared to change it because it will show that it doesn't work. There are some errors or there are some delays which make it impossible. And then, of course, another way of looking at one way of looking at the data and piloting whether they are good enough is to look at other sources, such as the last census that you had, so that you will have to look at if you take in the register, does it fit with what you could see from the last census? And especially if you update the last census more or less to see what would be the figures for today, then does it fit or not? And if it doesn't fit, you have a problem. You can also compare with sector statistics, education statistics, population statistics, and you could try to compare with sample surveys on a micro level. For instance, if you have a labor force survey, you could compare the register data with the labor force survey micro data to see if there seem to be systematic differences between the two sources. Now I would move to the quality work of your organizations, and here the organization of the quality management. I would like to say a few words about that. I know this relates very well to the code of practice work that you are doing in GCC-STAT, and I would mention some of the components that would be important to have in your quality management work. First of all, it would be important to have to commit your organization to quality work, and you could and should do this by stating from the top of the organizations, we are committed to quality. This means that we are going to look at these quality aspects. It also means that you should have an organizational structure that supports the quality work. You should have a quality committee. You should have a quality coordinator who can help the people doing the individual processes of the census in assuring their methods and documenting their methods. And there should be guidelines regarding how the quality should be assured in the different processes of the GSBPM. The statistical processes need to be documented, and you need to review this documentation on a ongoing basis, and go back from time to time and review specific elements of your statistical processes using the guidelines for how processes should be carried out in your organization. And of course then you should report on the quality. You should make quality reports and publish them so that people can understand, people outside the organization and also inside the organization can understand what it is and can understand the quality of your work. This is a model for how the quality work can take place, and I think, as I have only a few minutes left, I think I will skip this. I would recommend that you have quality declarations containing these elements, and quality declarations on the census and all other elements of your activity. First of all, the statistical content. What are the concepts measured in these statistics in the census? What are all of the concepts? What are all of the populations measured in the statistics? And secondly, what has been the statistical processing? Which methods have been done, have been used? The whole methodology. And finally, also the quality dimensions: relevance, accuracy, timeliness, comparability, and accessibility. So this is an essential part of the metadata which you should provide in order to guide users when they want to use your data. And this is the basis for quality assurance and also auditing of the data, and also something like what you need to report to the IMF, STDS, if you are reporting to that. I suppose you are all reporting to IMF, either STDS or one of the other schemes. And I would like to show just a model how auditing of the work could be done in your country. And for instance, if you have the census, you should try to establish a team of experts who could perform a self-assessment of the activities that they have done, and also they need to provide the documentation, the metadata about the statistics. Then this could be reviewed by a review team, which would have to be set up. The review team could be internal or external. Of course, the easiest thing is to have an internal review team, and it could be people from the next door statistics. They could come and say, yes, you explain this to us. Why did you do this? Why didn't you do it like that? And then you would need to report and have an action list about improvements that need to be done. And you could carry on a few of such surveys every year. This is basically a model of constant review and improvement of the products. And of course, this is a never-ending story. All the time you will need to review what you're doing. You will always find some problems. You will always need to improve, and this is the whole idea of the quality assurance that you need to do in the census and in all other kinds of statistics. Oh, what's this? So in conclusion, quality is in everything we do. even in management. Being a former manager myself, I sometimes find it hard to understand that what we do in management really matters to quality, but it must do. Otherwise, we shouldn't manage anything. And then quality is basically making users satisfied. If they're not satisfied, it's not good enough what we do. And we should remember that quality is not only accuracy. Many of us tend to think, yes, quality means it's accurate, but it's not. For instance, we can spend years making very accurate figures, but then they will come out too late, and timeliness is just as important as accuracy. Sources need to be understood. We need to study the sources. We need to understand the quality of the sources and the problems of quality as seen in relation to the census. And we must work closely with the providers. We must go to them. We must talk to them every day. We must have quality. We must have cooperation committees with them. We can even if the administrative registers are not perfect, we can remedy something by combining the data and using several sources to estimate just one concept, and to use several sources to add up to a common population. And editing must be done intelligently. We cannot just edit. We cannot just look at every record and see if we like it or not. It must be done in a way that it's intelligent and efficient, and we concentrate on the errors that matter. Then we should have ex-post auditing. Once we've done our work, we should look at it, we should evaluate, and then we should make sure that we accomplish continuous improvement through all of the processes that we conduct. Thank you.